Welcome back to Ad Age's TV Pivot. I'm Janine Poggi, Assistant Managing Editor here at Ad Age. Thanks for joining us for the second half of our day. We're going to kick things off with a conversation around the importance of investing in minority-owned media companies, which have long been overlooked by brands who think they're reaching diverse audiences in their general market buys. Joining me now is Mike Roach, Executive VP of Sales and Partnerships at Revolt, and Fernando Romero, Senior VP, Head of Sales at Fuse. Hello there.
Hello there. Hi, Janine.
Hi, thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So, Mike, I'd like to kick things off with you. What has been the biggest hurdle in getting a share of ad budgets during the upfronts in years prior?
Right. Well, one, thanks for having me and getting to spend some time with one of my favorite people in media, Mr. Fernando. For us, there are really two hurdles that I would say that were just consistently being reinforced when we entered meetings. One is the barrier of entry around measurement for TV. No matter how much we talk about the benefits of working with Revolt or looking to build cultural currency, or how other advertisers have been able to work with us with great success, it was still just prevented 95% of deals from happening with agencies. So really, to the extent that we ended up doing much more of a client-focused approach to our sales efforts, because marketers were able to kind of look at the things based on what makes sense versus having to put everything in that same box. So ultimately, they're the ones that are going to give permission to the agency's counterparts to bypass that whole barrier. So that was certainly one of them. Then I think the other side is just that Black targeted media, frankly, wasn't being supported in a significant way. So even though this is an audience that influences global culture, influences global commerce at scale, if Revolt got bucketed as a multicultural buy, then historically that was not a good thing because there was no money there.
Right. And I definitely want to get back to the measurement issue in a little later on. Fernando, same question for you. What have you seen at Fuse as some of the challenges and maybe how you've navigated those?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think transacting through older TV models just didn't work for us, right? If you're just checking off boxes when it comes to linear, whether it's demos, pricing, spots and dots, I think the reach and frequency model just didn't work for us, especially when you think about broader considerations for independent media companies like Fuse and also Revolt. Also, really the lack of industry emphasis, I think, on reaching diverse audiences. So for us, again, I agree with Michael, it's been about elevating the conversation and talking about the importance not only of diverse audiences and reaching, but really connecting with them and understanding the fact that they do have consumption power, right? That's what's really behind all these things. So it's not only about reaching the consumer, but really connecting with the consumer in a major way. So research is one of the things that we've been leaning into a little bit more. And again, as you had mentioned, I think this industry is still very dependent on limited audience measurement to the effect that we can educate our clients a little bit more on the significance of connecting with diverse audiences as consumers is really important.
Yeah. Michael, of course, today is the 1-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. I'm curious, over the past year, what you've seen change. Are you seeing brands engage with Revolt in different ways? Are you seeing brands already come, to the table during, the upfronts with new ways of partnerships or things like that? Like, what have you seen really change?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have missed a whole lot of announcements from agencies and brands and equity upfronts and whatnot to say otherwise. I mean, for Revolt, there's definitely been a monumental change. I mean, we've added 65 new big national partners in just over a year. We plan to have really exponential growth in the number of brands that we're working with in the upfront. But in regards to what's actually different, I think that the reality is that the conversation has shifted from being solely about impressions and spots and dots to being one based on cultural currency, to being one based on cultural impact investments. So, advertisers are looking more now to us at the long game, like how can they invest in our audience and property now so that we can actually continue to grow and have more traditional media to offer them in the future. And it's different. This isn't a cookie cutter framework for these types of deals to be had, so it takes some work to get there. But we are definitely excited about the level of enthusiasm for our brand and the audience right now. I mean, and the amount of sort of long-term commitments that are being made.
I mean, look, we're spending the last 2 days talking a lot with various TV media groups about scale and about driving scale. So we know that's still top of mind. We know that, at the end of the day, a lot of what brands are looking for is reach. So how do you sort of talk about that, when we're talking about measurement and metrics and some of the issues with Nielsen ratings, which is, what the industry has relied on? How do you talk about navigating around that? What are the other metrics that they should really be looking at and evaluating, both of your brands? Maybe Fernando, if you want to start.
Yeah, I think for us, it's really looking about, collaborative marketing platforms that build brand loyalty through impact and empowerment, and understanding what that really means. Again, to Mike's point, the audiences that we reach, there's a real significance about community and how that really drives a connection to the audience outside of just the media spots. Right? Programs for us include stuff like Be Change, right? Where we encourage the audiences to be the change they want to see. We make issues that are prevalent to all communities, but we also really try to drive to solutions, which I think is really important for what we're looking to do, right? We're about uniting cultures. So something like a Future History franchise where we celebrate all the different significant celebration months, but really looking ahead versus the historicals, or also even a program like where we're supporting small business initiatives like Buy Small. So it really starts, I think, with insights and data to help understand what drives that emotional connection to empowerment, and how these initiatives are really going to help build brand loyalty over the course. That's one of the things that we've been providing with our clients that really are going to make a big difference outside of just checking off the boxes, of which we know that, again, Nielsen is not capturing sentiment in those buckets, right? It's really just about a one-dimensional ratings game. And connection with multicultural audiences is really about understanding what's driving them. Because again, these are now intersectional youths, these are intersectional multicultural audiences. So there's a lot of different factors that go along to their consideration of understanding brand loyalty and about purchasing power, right? They want to understand what drives a brand advertiser to really want to connect with them outside of trying to get their dollars. I think that this audience is very sophisticated to try to understand what really are the tactics behind brands and why they can actually be an empowering brand that really drives that brand loyalty to the next level.
Michael, partnership, how can brands look to ensure that they're not just checking off a box?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because like I said, we're getting into a lot of these conversations now. If I'm going to think about real partnership and like really looking to do something that's going to have like a lasting impact, I would say there's really kind of two kind of core areas that make for the best partnership. I think one is just the intent. Like that's my number one, like willing partner, actually caring about like, why are you investing and who are you investing in? Like that goes a long way. And that's also, I think, just the basis of great conversation, ideation, like what problems can we solve together? How can we do work that can create real change and opportunity while helping your business grow? Because we're not blind to the fact that obviously there is business objectives here too. So, what does like kind of being able to sit down and say, what does your business or message do that applies to some shared area of focus between Revolt and your brand, where we can work together to do something really meaningful? Like that all comes back to intent and trust and communication, that side of stuff. And then I think the other area is really what you're seeing more of in some of the announcements is having long-term objectives. So to be a good partner, you can't just kind of look at things in a narrow window of time. Like change doesn't happen in a day, especially if you haven't had any real communication with this audience in the past. So when you look ahead 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you can set KPIs that can put you on a course to really kind of help your business for the long run be able to make an impact with the audience. And, we partnered with advertisers that say pretty bold statements. They'll be like, we want to change the perception that a young Black consumer has with our brand by showing up where they are, adding value to their experience. So you can do things like we can use social listening to track changes in sentiment over time. We can do qualitative ethnographies to get real feedback. We can look at outcomes and attribution, but do it over a long period of time and optimize for the areas that are working the best. That's what I would say.
Fernando, whose job is it, or how are you looking to like hold brands accountable? How do we make sure as an industry that these are the types of partnerships and the types of companies that really want to enact change versus just, doing something perhaps for optics?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think for us, it's really about that open dialogue that Mike had mentioned, really helping identify and establish clear objectives supported by insights. And I think, again, That's what we want to bring to the table, right? Is really having that thought leadership positioning of what has been driving Fuse to really encourage and engage with this consumer and this audience, and really helping understand, what are their importance of what they're looking to see. And that becomes a strong foundation for strategic development, I think, in terms of overall campaigns and programs that are going to deliver the most impact over time. And then again, I think setting those benchmarks that Mike had mentioned, right, whether it's going to be a 3 to 6 month window or over the course of time, the change doesn't happen overnight, right? The first step is definitely making sure that you're agreeing on what you want to achieve and what are their business objectives and goals. But again, as we mentioned, the insight to really connecting with this audience is it's broader than just the dollar, right? I think every audience will understand exactly who is a culture vulture and what they're trying to achieve versus real systemic change that happens from within. That's another reason why, for Fuse, we actually took on changing our ownership. So this will be our first upfront, being a Latino-owned and managed media brand, because we found that to be very important, right? We wanted to represent ourselves holistically to the audience that we want to also represent and celebrate as a blended America. So we're holding ourselves accountable. So now when we go out to have these substantive conversations with clients, we can also help set a guideline and a benchmark on how do we achieve real change together over the course of time through real initiatives that I think are going to drive impact.
I think it sounds like one of the key goals here is not to just do deals that are just like one-offs for this year because, this year they think that they need to do those, but having like sustainable and long-term partnerships, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Exactly. That's and those are the conversations that we want to have. And also those are the conversations I think that clients are going to see most success with, right? So Mike and I were talking about this earlier, they will be those deals that a client will come to us that we will not find that actually makes the most sense for our audience or for our company or programs that we don't feel like we want to support, whether it's disingenuous or too ambitious or not realistic. So I think it's also incumbent upon us as good media partners and brand partners to help understand and establish, like I said, realistic goals and expectations, and let us drive that together versus being dictated by some certain benchmarks that might be unrealistic from the get-go.
Right. I'm Janine Poggi, and I'm here with Revolt's Michael Roach and Fuse's Fernando Romero. What do you think about some of the commitments that have already been put out there, whether from the agency side, brand side, making specific dollar percentage commitments to minority-owned media companies, to Black-owned media companies? Do you think that we need to see more brands and agencies go this route, or what are you looking for as it pertains to commitments from brands and agencies?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on this. Initially, when you saw a couple of the brands coming out and doing it, it was like, okay, there's some real percentages being discussed here. We're looking for some transparency on what those percentages mean in terms of real dollars and how they're going to shake out. But we were starting to get a feeling, okay, this is helpful. If you're an independent company and you've got investors and you're trying to grow, like you want to see that this isn't like a moment in time where we're going to get a spike in revenue and that's going to disappear. So anything that's looking out long term is clearly helpful. But when the agencies started coming in and saying, we're going to, huge holding companies saying, we're going to come out and make these commitments, that's where you're like, okay, this is real. Because, if one of their, one brand in the portfolio doesn't pony up money, someone else has to replace it if they're trying to hit these goals. So that's where I think we got the most excited, because we were already having conversations with a lot of those brands that were, making the larger commitments because they've either been in the game a little bit longer or, are catching up really quickly. But the agencies doing it, I feel like has been a really positive move.
Fernando, what are you thinking about as it relates to how Fuse is looking to break through and gain a bigger share of dollars this year?
Yeah, I think having those conversations that are happening both at the agency level and also at the client level, and really coming to market with those pillars that are going to make and matter most to both our audiences and our clients alike. So we've identified about 4 key initiatives that we want to take to the market. One is actually leading with that data insights and intelligence that really kind of helps us make our partners smarter in connecting with this audience a little bit differently, because there are obviously nuances to understanding this group. Also leveraging our media solutions, right? Reaching the consumers and the audiences across all screens, taking it outside of just a one-dimensional, whether it's linear or digital. It's really having a more holistic approach to these programs. I think that really is going to make a difference. as well as leveraging partnerships, right, and collaborations across the board and looking at touch points like live events or tech or commerce that are really going to drive impact. And then lastly, leveraging, our development arm, our Fuse Studios to really help create original IP that, to Mike's point, is really going to make a long-lasting difference over the course of time, right? How do we make programs that are really going to last and really make that authentic connection? So those are the few things that we're bringing to the table, as well as our creative storytelling, right? Again, the broader approach for Fuse is about uniting cultures, authentically showcasing talent and those activists and creators that are really looking to break ground and actually feel hope for a better tomorrow. So if we can work together with partners through that lens, I think we'll make a big difference this year. So we've definitely been very excited and optimistic about the conversations that we've been having as compared to years past.
Michael, how about for Revolt? What does it bring to the marketplace that's maybe missing elsewhere?
In terms of what we're bringing to the marketplace, I think there's a few core things. For starters, we're a Black-owned, Black-operated, Black-targeted brand. So, we're delivering on exactly what this world needs right now. Sean Diddy Combs created Revolt to fill a void where no global platforms are out there representing the full interests of Black culture. So, Revolt comes in this unapologetic way with news and social justice, which is clearly very important right now, but also music and sports and lifestyle and all that type of work through the lens of hip hop. And, we've got this design target that's young, gifted, and Black, but ultimately we influence global culture and commerce at scale. So, we're delivering influence, we're delivering viewership from so many others, which is a differentiator. And then I think, the second part is like our process. So we bring in-house branded content agency capability that's really unrivaled for hip hop. It's been built up over the last year. It's led by creative and insights with a big focus on talent alignment and contextual planning. So you'll find, we'll go out there and really work with brands to find white space for new ideas, be able to pressure test them with our audience, and then build this massive reach around them. But we're all doing that while really thinking really smartly about the way we spend our money, like the economics of a Black-owned media company, supporting Black creators, hiring Black companies to work with, having the most diverse employee base in media. All that stuff's really important. And Fernando just mentioned it too, not being culture vultures, but rather bring the best and the brightest in the culture to be working on behalf of the, the brands that we're with. That's where we feel we're just untouchable in that respect.
And of course, the biggest consideration and conversation right now in the upfront is streaming. And I'm curious to hear from both of you on how both Fuse and Revolt are playing in the streaming wars, what place there is for both of your companies to take a share of that and really be a part of that conversation. Fernando, if you want to start.
Yeah. So recently Fuse at the beginning of the year announced a dedicated streaming division, which we're really proud of. And we're currently out in market with 3 dedicated brands. One is Fuse Backstage. The next is Fuse Sweat and also Fuse Beat. So we're going to continue to actually grow that portfolio of reaching, again, net new audience across the streaming division. I think it was just really exciting for us. One concentrated effort that we've done is actually to create original IP. So it's less about repurposing Fuse linear or FM linear services and just extending those out to new platforms. We really wanted to work with all our distribution platforms to create original content that's really going to connect and, again, extend our vision of this blended America and celebration of new audiences in a holistic way, again, through the Fuse lens. And then we're also rapidly growing our international division for streaming because we see that as a huge opportunity for us, again, through creating original IP and distribution through partnerships. So we're very excited about having that conversation as well that also, again, builds out the Fuse media solutions for the right partners.
And Michael, for you, how is Revolt playing in the streaming space right now?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in the development process for a year now to take a really quantum leap in just building on the success that we've been having on the digital space, but we're really thinking about streaming in a meaningful way. So in July, we're launching our AVOD, connected TV and mobile apps offering. So that's going to be a fast channel and on-demand library and exclusives that are all meant for more of that lean back consumption. Also gives us, the ability to start testing on TVOD and SVOD offerings as we build up that audience. And then what we're really excited about too is just in September, we're relaunching our mobile web and desktop experience. So we're really excited about it. The site has had tremendous growth this year. Our YouTube channel has had tremendous growth. So we're investing in a video first experience that creates a lot of the infrastructure to be able to do a lot of community work, to be able to build out our e-commerce offering. That's going to be amazing. So, a lot happening on that front.
How are you thinking about the ad experience in these spaces?
it's we're actually going through the UI UX now, and it's like the most interesting part of the conversation, because we like to bring in, we just let the creative team and the sales side of the house just, you know, kind of battle it out until we find some common ground. But there really is the ability now to make it less about intrusiveness and more about impact. And I think the way that we're really building our focus with brands around branded content and, you know, building out really impactful social content makes it where it doesn't have to be so much just traditional inventory.
And before I let you guys go, next year, if we were to sit down and speak again, what do you hope has changed in the marketplace? What do you hope see evolve and move from, you know, the past year into the next year?
I think the focus on making social impact through marketing, I think, is going to be really important, and really establishing those programs that I think us as media partners and clients as well are going to be proud of, that are really making a change to the audiences that they want to reach. Right? We all understand that there's business objectives, but I think there's a larger consideration that we should all be a part of. Right? These are all conversations that impact all of us, especially in this media space. I think it's going to be less about the spots and dots, and really, I think, understanding the nuances and the importance of reaching diverse audiences, of being connected with empowering brands, and again, all through this lens of uniting versus dividing, that I think is going to be really important. So again, like our audience, I'm optimistic on the way the industry is going and how we'll be able to respond in this year's upfront versus just the standard spots and dots movement.
Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, I think just from our side, like, our ambition is to be the world's largest Black-owned media company. So having being in the spotlight right now and having the ability to have such amazing like conversations at both the brand and agency level, like, our hope is that this communication is for good, like that the conversations we're having now, that we're in communication as if we are your number one partner, because we believe that in the future that will be the case. So I think it's just about being able to say that that 2021 was not just a moment in time, that 2022 is actually just starting to get started and where we're going to head into the future.
Great. Well, Michael and Fernando, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having us. Good seeing you, Mike. Take care, everybody.
Up next, Studio 30 editor John Dioso chats with Dish Media's Kevin Arix, Warner Media's Jason Brown, and Jamie Power of Cadent, one of our sponsors.
Thanks, Janine, and thank you for introducing us. And so you got that out of the way. I don't need to repeat everybody's name. You can get right into this conversation because we've got three heavy hitters here today. Jamie, Kevin, and Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to discuss breaking silos, the future of addressable TV. Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You all set to do this?
Great. How you doing, John?
Good. Nice to see you.
15 minutes with Kevin and Jamie.
15 minutes, no commercial breaks. All right, let me just give a little setup. For years, addressable TV has been viewed by the industry as part of the future of advertising. But as more precise targeting, measurement, and attribution become even more paramount, is that future now? Cadent, Dish, and Warner Media recently partnered with LiveRamp, Viacom, CBS, Verizon Media, NVIDIA, Comscore, and Canoe to commission a study about addressable TV from Forrester. Jason, why don't you take the first question, and then Jamie and Kevin can weigh in. What are some of the common misperceptions that you've heard about addressable TV?
Well, addressable has been around for, call it 8 or 9 years. And I would say for the first 5 or 6 years, it was largely a precision tactic. So brands and advertisers looking to connect with a precise audience and track the exposure against that audience to a real life outcome. And so, the last couple years, this kind of second flavor of addressable has entered, and that was kind of the ability to use the technology just to serve underexposed households to a linear TV campaign. So I think one of the misconceptions is it's only a precision tool, but it's actually an amazing opportunity for brands to take a broad demographic, look at their linear TV schedule, see which households were underexposed or lightly exposed, and just reconnect with them to grow reach. And, I think that's really opened up the aperture of number of advertisers that are using the space. So that's certainly one. And then the other one I think is just price. Some people look at it and say, oh, that's a pretty high premium CPM. But when you really factor in the waste that's associated with, a lot of the linear campaigns, TV campaigns, it's actually super efficient, especially in certain kind of high value, hard to reach categories.
Kevin, do you want to weigh in on that a little bit?
Well, obviously, I agree with Jason on both points. No, I think the use cases for addressable have expanded, and I think that's a really important point. I mean, addressable fundamentally is a technology that allows you to take and deliver a specific message or action to a specific household. So all of the use cases that Jason mentioned are viable, and the list is growing, which is exciting to see. I think a big misperception is a lot of people say that measurement is lacking in addressable advertising, and I actually would argue the opposite. I mean, I think that the measurement capabilities that we have for addressable are incredible. They're very digital-esque. You're getting true attribution, ROI, return on ad spend. And I think that's a really important thing for everybody to understand, is that measuring addressable television is very, very good. Blending it and connecting it with linear television is still something that needs to be solved for, but measuring addressable is very, very strong today.
Jamie, what about you?
I mean, I agree with both Jason and Kevin.
Come on, you guys are supposed to fight. What are you doing?
Well, there's nothing to fight about. We've all been doing this for so long, and believe in the value proposition of it. Measurement is key. Never in television have you had the ability to actually turn the lights on and see if something is actually working. We also don't have advertisers shy away from something not working. So figuring out what's broken in a TV campaign is equally as important. And then to Jason's point about reaching audiences are fragmenting across the different screens. So this actually is an efficient mechanism to reach audiences, whether it's a demo or strategic audience. And what we've been doing is moving advertisers off of just looking at CPM and starting to look at cost per incremental reach point against that audience. And then you could see how to efficiently layer in audiences across the different screens.
That Forrester study did also call out, and I think Jason referred to this before, there is that misperception that this is a lower funnel part of the, that belongs in the lower funnel, but it actually does go across the funnels. And I think that that's something that the brands have not been taking advantage of. Can anybody does anybody want to comment on that before we move on to the next question? What are the other ways, Jason? Do you want to,
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the nose. I would say you're right. Not a lot of brands have used like the capabilities full funnel, but some have. And I just want to, point out like how to, you'll have, taking the auto category. If you think about the auto category, it's a 9-month customer journey when they first get the signal that they might be interested in buying a car, all the way to conversion. And if the capability of using addressable, or even just using linear plus addressable through companies like ourselves here that have identity, we can stitch together. We can understand, because we have identity. We have exposure against upper funnel tactics and exposure against bottom funnel tactics. We can show how both of them work together. So if you launch a car and you buy Warner Media, for example, big premium content, March Madness, and then call it 3 weeks later, run a tier 2 drive to dealership campaign. Both of those campaigns run through our set-top boxes. And so we have exposure level data, and we can apply that exposure level data against sales lift when you combine both together or in isolation. And so we're starting to work on these kind of these full funnel solutions for brands. I would say more at the campaign level, but not yet at the full customer journey level, like the full 9 months. And I think that's the opportunity here for those brands that want to work with us on an always-on basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think now it's just as hard to reach a demo as it is a strategic audience because of fragmentation. So if it was 5 years ago, we would tell an advertiser to layer on addressable with their linear spend and balance them out and drive consumers through the funnel. Now with audiences across different screens, addressable is also an effective way just to recapture demographic audiences at scale.
Kevin, according to the Forrester study, 64% of media buyers would invest more in addressable if they understood it better. What do you think would make it more accessible to them?
Well, I mean, I think it speaks to the need or the lack and need of education. And as Jason mentioned earlier, like addressable television's been around for a while, 8-9 years, and we collectively have this group has collectively been evangelizing all things positive about addressable and tackling hurdles and compressing the workflow, and we've made a lot of strides. And I think it from the very beginning, it comes across as a very complicated process. But as media is evolving, and as certainly as you look to the future and you look at all the issues around identity and the deprecation of cookies and whatnot, I think the processes that you see with that addressable advertising has been using are now and will become commonplace. So I think the industry overall has a vested interest in understanding the workflows of addressable and where it begins and what the stops are and what measurement cycles are, and I think it's up to all participants, data companies, measurement companies, distributors, programmers now with national minutes. I think it's up to all of us to make sure that we are educating the market and discussing sort of the what is now and what is coming, and make sure that the buying community and advertisers understand what is happening. It has been a complicated process. It has gotten a lot easier. There are solutions now that make it easier, and I think that's only going to accelerate. So I think education overall is going to continue to be a theme that we all need to lock arms and embrace. And that was made pretty loud and clear, I think, in the Forrester study.
Going back to that study, and Jamie, maybe you can hit this, and Jason can weigh in a little bit. Despite the extreme interest in doing it, like in fact, 90% of brand respondents to the study said they have engaged with or considering running addressable TV campaigns, but they also found that 4 in 10 respondents felt only fewer than 4 in 10, felt very confident in their ability to effectively execute addressable TV buys. So what developments need to happen to scale and simplify the way addressable is bought and sold? Jamie, can you take that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it has not been easy to buy addressable over the last couple of years. It's not easy to buy it. It's not easy to sell it. Speaking from the 4 years I spent on the buy side, specifically addressable buy side, I know the pain points. I live them. I manually put spreadsheets together. I made phone calls to call data partners. So we sort of get it. Interestingly, coming over to Cadent, we have offered via a managed service kind of our technology. So we've automated the workflow end to end and have been serving it up to our clients in a managed service capacity. But I think technology is really needed to make it easier for agencies to buy and sell addressable, and the buy and sell side to connect with the addressable marketplace. And we're at a point that, we're ready to kind of expose that technology to the market to make it easier to trade at scale.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. I'm sorry for agreeing so much.
I know, we're so boring.
Well, how about this? I'll be a little bit more positive than Jamie.
Who are your favorite teams? Maybe we can get into that.
I mean,
a little
I'm
bit.
being positive. Like Jason, I lived through this slog for years, and you can see that a managed service isn't scaling the market. Like, we need to do something different to make it easier.
Yeah, no, this is how I feel. I feel like there are a good amount of agencies that are really investing in people-based planning tools, and those that have acquired. It doesn't mean you have to acquire, but many of them have acquired data companies to build out these people-based planning tools, like a Merkle or an Axiom or an Epsilon, and so that's making the process easier. But there is this need for a self-service tool at the agencies that might not have invested in those people-based planning tools. So that's certainly the case. Also, I'm encouraged to see structurally how the agencies are morphing perhaps their programmatic teams and their advanced TV teams into one, or at least evaluating anything one-to-one targeted in one group. That seems to be another positive movement. And so I think we're kind of moving in the right direction. Remember, this business was zero 8 years ago. It's $3.4 billion now. It's grown significantly, but it should be. It has a lot more legs in the future.
I would just add to that. I mean, I'm trying not to agree with everything, but I think we all do. I think we're all on the same page with regards to technology helping solve one of the primary barriers in the marketplace, and that has been that the buy side has had to cobble together the solution. Right? I buy from here, I buy from X, I buy from Y, I buy from Z, and I'm going to have to do all this work. And it is 2021, And there is a lot of advertising technology and enablement technology that exists today that can make it easier for the buy side. And I think what it is going to be a call to is participants on the inventory side, whether it's distributor or programmer, to buy into technology. And the theme of this panel is silo based. We gotta like stop with the silos, and everybody can control their own destiny and control their own commercial terms, but plug into technology that makes it easier for the buy side. Like that is the future for so much of the advertising world, and it is certainly the future for addressable.
You read my mind there, Kevin. There's nothing we love more than breaking silos, right? So I loved hearing all the stuff that you guys had just said. I just want to introduce everybody in case you're late joining us. I'm John Dioso, editor of Ad Age Studio 30, and with me are Jamie Power, Chief Data Officer and CEO of Advanced TV at Cadent, Kevin Arick, Senior Vice President at Dish Media, and Jason Brown, Lead for Addressable Advertising at Warner Media. So we've already talked a little bit about some of the obstacles. Why don't we go a little bit into marketers and brands, and maybe just we have a few minutes left, just a couple of minutes left, you could each kind of weigh in as where you see this all going. So what do marketers and brands have to do to move forward, and where do you see the overall TV market headed in the next couple of years? Why don't I throw it to Jason?
So, where do I think it's headed? I think the aperture of addressable is growing in terms of distribution and capabilities. We talked a little bit about the capabilities, but in terms of distribution, I wouldn't look at it as linear anymore. It's not. We've companies like myself, Warner Media. I don't want to speak for Kev, and others have extended unified targets beyond linear to OTT and other addressable endpoints. And what's next is national enablement. So addressables largely lived in the 2 minutes of commercial time that all of the cable and satellite operators retain as part of their carriage agreements with the most watched cable networks, and they've extended that into OTT products. But it will move into the 14 minutes or roughly 14 minutes of commercial time an hour labeled the national breaks. And that'll be big growth. This is the year of test. Next year will be the year of scale in that regard. So that's what we're looking forward to at Warner Media.
Kevin or Jamie?
Go on, Jamie.
I mean,
I just want to agree with you.
No, I do. This is the first time that we all agree with each other. No, I think, I've been working in the addressable space for a long time because I see the value in it. There's nothing more exciting at the end of a campaign to tell a client why something worked or what they can do better, and how their dollars work to drive incremental sales or value for the brand. I'm looking forward to finally seeing the year of hockey stick growth, this hopefully being the year of addressable, and actually bringing the market to the scale it should be at.
I would say for marketers and agencies, I think it's time to acknowledge and embrace and include. Television advertising is still super important. Linear advertising is super effective, but it is changing. The consumer patterns have changed so that you have to use different tactics to optimize the audience that you're trying to reach. And addressable is one of those tactics. I believe that, and Dish Media, we believe that the market is moving towards impression-based. Addressable is part of that. The combination of linear television and CTV is underway. It's happening. And I think we hear too much of oh, well, addressable doesn't have this and addressable doesn't have that. And I think it's time to sort of let that go and understand the benefits that it brings, that the benefits far outweigh any imperfections that exist today. And those imperfections are going to get solved. I think that is why we all agree on this panel today, is because we saw what the Forrester study told us, and we all are committed to making sure, and the other participants as well, we're committed to solving those final barriers for addressable TV.
Drop the mic.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I said drop the mic, Kev.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I can't think of a better way to wrap it up. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Jamie Power, Kevin Arick, and Jason Brown. Thank you for a great conversation. And back to you, Janine Poggi. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
Thanks, John. And thank you all for tuning in. I want to say hi to those of you who are watching at home. We have Matt from Tennessee, Pascal from France, Maria from Brazil, Marcelo from Peru, Nikhil from India, Rao from Pakistan, Mary from New York, Summer from China, Nurula from Turkey. Thank you so much for tuning in. So amid all of the upfront presentations last week, the biggest headline was certainly news of the deal between AT&T and Discovery. Coming off that monumental announcement, next we are joined by John Steinloff, Chief U.S. Advertising Sales Officer at Discovery. Hi, John.
Hi, Janine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So obviously, top of everyone's mind is the AT&T and Discovery deal. What can you say about how the announcement will impact this year's upfront negotiations?
It won't. It can't. Maybe next year.
Okay, so
it's supposed to take a year to close.
Okay, so business as usual on your end for this year. Okay. So what are obviously the big thing for Discovery this year has been the launch of Discovery Plus, and that just happened, earlier this year. Can you talk about what the opportunities, first time really taking it out to the general marketplace and the upfront, what the opportunities are there for brands and how you're thinking about the ad model there?
Well, the ad model on Discovery Plus is going great. We're selling it out every day. We have upfront advertisers from 2021 doing extremely well with the programmatic side of the business, very good CPMs, very, very high sellouts. The appeal of Discovery Plus is that it's many ways it's being used by the cord-cutting household to a high percentage. And when you cross from the cable bundle household to the cord-cutting household, it's all pure incremental reach. And reach is not that easy to get in the cord-cutting household because a lot of those platforms are completely commercial free. At least the three biggest are, and Netflix, Amazon, and Disney Plus. So we're supplementing reach. It's a younger audience, and there's a lot of targeting. There's a tremendous amount of targeting when you get to a Discovery Plus, but beyond that, the engagement that these passionate fans have with many of the Discovery brands comes into play as well.
And what are you thinking in terms of like the ad loads and different types of ad products and opportunities on Discovery Plus? How are those evolving? What are some of the new things you are bringing to the marketplace this year?
Well, first of all, the ad load is extremely light. Consumers can buy Discovery Plus at $4.99 or $6.99. The content is identical on both services. The only thing different is that we take 4 minutes of ad breaks on the $4.99 service and no ads whatsoever on the $6.99. And if you're watching the $4.99, you're going to get 4 commercial breaks within the hour. Each break is 60 seconds. There's a countdown clock from 60 back to content, and they're not skippable. So the value of the ads are much higher than they would be in a fully commercialized environment. They all tend to pop a lot more when you have such a light load. The other opportunities, Janine, I would say just quickly, one that comes to mind, I mean, we have binge, we have pause, we have interactive, we're building commerce capabilities. But the one I think that's most interesting is something we're doing with the closed captioning of all of the food and home content to start with that's in the library of 55,000 episodes on Discovery Plus. And what we can do is we can key off a keyword search term. Like, for example, anytime in any episode the word kitchen was used, we can find it in the closed captioning, and we can go to an advertiser, let's say in the kitchen appliance field, and say we can target you into all of the episodes we have where there's some contextual content around kitchens. And so the ad would appear right before or right after the word kitchen was said by a talent or a designer.
It's almost like search word optimization.
It's search word come to video.
I'm sure there's a lot of opportunities around kitchen and Discovery's networks, a portfolio of networks, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of shows. That's the most popular room to be renovated.
And something new also coming soon is Chip and Joanna Gaines's Magnolia Network. Can you talk about how you're bringing that to the marketplace this year?
Yeah, we sold it last year to about 50 clients up front in the 2021. We had a tentative launch date of 4/1/21. That slipped because of COVID. We're now going to launch this network on the DIY platform. DIY has about 50 million US households. It's been around for over 20 years. It's a great brand unto itself, but the Magnolia content will supplement the DIY content. There'll be still some of the DIY shows will remain in production. And all this is going to happen in January of 2022. We're going to change the name from DIY to Magnolia. We're selling it right now in the upfront market. The 50 advertisers who bought it last year upfront have said they want to stay with it. We're also going to launch a Magnolia app sometime in July of 21. We also have Magnolia content running on Discovery Plus as a sneak peek to build up the brand and the talent. And there's also going to be a different commercial clock of all of the Discovery channels, and we have 17 linear channels. This is going to be a clock that's going to be much lighter than any of the linear channels. This is something that Chip and Joanna themselves believe in. They want a lighter load. They want more storytelling, more branded content, less of the typical 30-second commercials you'll see. So we're going to have a very light load with much more targeted storytelling in longer form.
What are you anticipating as it relates to the amount of ad budgets that you think will shift from linear TV into streaming this year? You know, we're hearing demand is up. Obviously, ratings are down and continue to be down. So where will the opportunities be for advertisers to place their dollars?
Well, I've heard NBC say 70-30, 70 linear, 30 non-linear. I think that's a bit on the ambitious side, understanding what the supply looks like in streaming or digital. I would say more like 85-15 would be a good guess as to how much will stay on linear and how much will shift. But I think as the years go by, we'll see a couple of points a year coming out of linear, coming into streaming as the streaming services grow. But remember, there's not a lot of inventory because there's a lot of ad free, and then where you have ad light, the loads are very light. And they're new services. Peacock is new. HBO Max is new. Their AVOD starts next month. Ours is only 4 months old. Paramount Plus is a rebrand. So there's been a lot of activity, but a lot of these streaming services need time to get bigger and bigger and have more supply. But I think the 85-15 is a good benchmark for us. I think the story of what we've seen so far in this upfront has been the demand for linear is as much of a story as the demand for streaming.
Let's talk about linear.
Yeah, linear is still very much popular.
Yeah, and Discovery obviously has a very large portfolio of linear cable channels. Can you talk about like what the value still is for those networks for advertisers?
Well, the thing we're talking about right now with us is parity to broadcast. And broadcast is having a difficult time. A lot of us are having a difficult time with ratings, but broadcasters also had a difficult time getting shows produced, especially scripted shows. So we've now stepped into this position where we're going shoulder to shoulder with broadcast, and we're taking our top 25 or 30 shows. So the other night, Sunday night, it would have been Hometown Takeover on HGTV. It would have been 90 Day Fiancé on TLC. It would have been The Worst Cooks in America on Food Network. It would have been Naked and Afraid on Discovery Channel. So shows like those that legitimately can do close to a 1 rating live or better, we're putting them into what we consider to be the hit show marketplace. And a hit show today, believe it or not, is a show that can do a 1 live on a buying demo. And that's where the industry is. So we're trying to position ourselves under Discovery Premiere as a great solution to a very inflated broadcast primetime market, given what the content and the ratings are right now.
And what does the value still mean for advertisers? Why is linear still a place that holds value, and what are the opportunities there versus the opportunities in streaming?
I think it's a great business for people over 40. If you're targeting over 40, that's where TV comes in. Linear TV is great. It's still a great business. 85% of the homes where the heads of households are over 40 still subscribe. They like the big bundle. They see the value in the big bundle. They watch a lot of live television with ads. So I think we have, as an industry, we have to come to terms with the fact that TV is really good for targeting over 40, but not as good as it used to be for targeting under 40, and that's where streaming comes in. But I think we have to get our arms around the fact that it's not an 18 to 49. We've really moved past 18 to 49 as a buying demo for linear television.
Yeah, and let's talk about the desire, the need to look at some of the older audiences and count them in terms of in these deals, beyond the 18 to 49, 25 to 54. Do you think there's an appetite for the, P2 plus, P18 plus, or those kinds of metrics?
Well, I can tell you that one of the biggest advertisers in the country has gone into this upfront thinking along the same lines that I am, which is let's stop buying 18 to 49. Try to get more of our money down, try to get a market advantage on rate of change. They haven't moved to 18 plus, they've moved to 18 to 64. And I think that's a step in the right direction. We can't expect every advertiser in every category to buy 2 plus or 18 plus or even 25 plus. But certain categories like pharma, financial, some retail, some auto, some CPG, I think those are the ones I think would be the first ones to make the shift. But this is really an existential threat, Janine, to the entire linear ad business, because when you look at the 18 to 49s and the 25 to 54s, so much of the audience is packed into those last 5 years. Once they start going off the cliff, we're going to be looking at triple-digit CPMs as standard, and I don't think that's the right thing for any of us. I think the supply has to be stabilized, and the best way to stabilize supply is buy TV for what it's good at. Buy TV on more of a 40 plus target.
Right. So you're saying what happens when the people who are in their 50s right now, early 50s, cross over the demo range, and how many people will drop off then?
So when you look at VPHs, which is still a very important part of this business, the VPHs on the key buying demos have fallen from the 40s to the 30s to the 20s, and watch out, it could go sub 20. And when you see VPHs sub 20, that means that about 3/4 of the people are getting into the theater for free every night, and it can't run a business that way. So we're going to try to monetize the full audience and sell the value of the people over 40 or over 45. It's where a lot of the money is. It's where a lot of the spending power is. It's just a shift. This is an industry in transition, but fortunately at Discovery, we've got a great streaming service or services, so we can offer advertisers the balance of the audience through our streaming.
And Discovery also announced some new initiatives around diversity and inclusion during the upfronts. Can you talk a little bit about what your sales team is bringing to the marketplace this year to help brands better reach and more authentically speak with diverse audiences?
Yeah, we thank you for that question. We have an ad-facing product that we're building that we announced last week at our Tuesday virtual. We did our virtual the first time ever during Broadcast Network Week, which was nice. It was also 24 hours after the announcement. But we're going to build an in-house brand. We're going to aggregate our diverse audiences across all of our many passion brands. And we're going to talk to clients who are looking for content that delivers their particular target within this wide swath of diverse audiences. And so we'll sell them ads in the shows that reach those diverse audiences. But to supplement that, we're also going to create short form content that speak directly to their diverse targets in the voice, look, and feel of our brands. So, for example, it could be Hispanic food trends on Food Network or Cooking Channel or short form that could be hosted by talented Food Network or Cooking Channel. It could be the influence of African American designers in short form pieces that could be sponsored, that could play on our home programming. So we're looking at it both from a long form content, short form content, custom, and we want to work with our advertisers to find the diverse audiences that they value most.
Do you think brands are having more meaningful conversations this year? Are you seeing a real change so far in the conversations that you're having where they're asking for this?
Absolutely. I think this is it's long overdue. We're starting to see not only looking at audiences, but they're also looking at production companies. Discovery does business with 100 production companies. We have 1,000 shows made by 100 production companies, and we're working with our producers to try to locate those that are minority owned or production companies where there's diversity in the ownership, to try to steer more of our production work to those kinds of companies to support this initiative. It's something we care about in front of the camera, behind the camera, storylines, audiences, all of it.
John, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Good to see you, Janine.
Good to see you. Be well. All right, so we're going to close out the day. I'm going to bring on Rita Farrow, President of Advertising Sales at Disney. Hi, Rita. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And I actually want to just pick up right where I left off with John, because I feel like Disney really spent a meaningful part of its virtual presentation highlighting initiatives to better connect brands with more diverse audiences and create content that really more authentically resonates with these viewers. Can you talk about your efforts there? And I know that was an important part of your presentation last week.
Absolutely. But first, obviously, given the importance of today and the anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, I want to just take a moment to just make sure that everyone knows that we're acknowledging that today as part of this conversation, and that we know that people want to make sure that they have the time to reflect on the incredible year that it has been, and more importantly, that we continue to focus on the area of inclusion and representation, because we've made so much progress, and yet there's so much work to do, and that leads us to the conversation that you teed up, which is, last week we were able to really talk about the purpose around our programming, which was really meaningful in 3 brands that we wanted to make sure we showcase for our partners. Voices of Change, which is anchored really in our linear and broadcast businesses. The Undefeated, which is celebrating its 5-year anniversary on ESPN, and is really expanding and extending its reach around not only a voice for editorial, but also cross business opportunities. And then the launch that we announced last week on the Onyx Collective, run by Tara Duncan, who also runs content for our Freeform business. We are unbelievably committed as a company and as a team to making sure that we are telling stories that matter to all of our consumers, that people feel authentically seen across all of our platforms. And then we also created an opportunity where we actually launched the Disney Culture Index to be able to measure the impact that those partnerships have on brands, because obviously CPM is a measure, it's not all measures. And we really wanted to make sure that we talked about cultural resonance, brand lift, all of the things that matter to our customers around KPIs, talking to multicultural audiences, and really drive value to make this the beginning of a very long-term opportunity. It's not something that we want to say it's a one and done. And as you know, we encouraged all of our partners to really make a commitment as part of this upfront around delivering multicultural programs and audiences as part of this upfront, because it was really important that we start to walk the walk on a regular basis together and really drive that opportunity forward.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that in particular, like holding not only yourselves accountable, but also brands accountable, and what that means, and what you're expecting, honestly, from the upfront this year for, brand partners to come to the table with.
I expect that they would want to walk the walk with us and be part of these launches of major programming initiatives. By the way, many have asked us for it. So this is a response to the tremendous call from brand partners to really be able to do that, to really be able to come to the table with programs that resonate and in meaningful and powerful ways, and tell uplifting and real stories that brands can connect with and really start to drive different conversations. And that's also led us to other opportunities where we're thinking about, how we speak to small business owners, and a program that we're calling the Disney Ad Sales Accelerator Program, where we're actually taking 10 minority-owned businesses and working with them on a comprehensive advertising campaigns and strategic consultation to teach them the learnings that we've had as an organization and give back to these businesses so that they too can be very successful in how they speak to their consumers. Because we really think, we have been given a tremendous opportunity, and too much is given, much is expected. And we want to make sure that we're leading the way there. And our brand partners have been completely and totally engaged in those conversations and have thanked us really for making sure that we keep that front and center in all the opportunities we're bringing to them.
That's great. So outside of the DE&I initiatives that you guys are going out there with, what are some of the other priorities and agenda items for you, going into the upfronts?
Well, we continue to create what is the evolution of partnerships with brands. Obviously, everything that is being talked about this year is incremental reach. How do I get incremental reach? And, our portfolio is unrivaled in the sense that we have such scale in digital as well as linear. And our conversations are really anchored, frankly, this year, starting in digital and how that comes together. And so for us, it's really been about how do we make sure that we are bringing value in being able to count those audiences and new opportunities, everything from more programmatic to performance marketing, everything from new ways to potentially drive integrations to ad innovation. As you know, we have the pause ad, Gateway Go, which is a commerce opportunity, and how we think about all of those pieces fitting into a broad audience delivery across campaigns. I was listening to John before talking about some of the partners who have changed their, the way they look at audiences. And that's absolutely true, right? So to the extent that we want to make sure that we are delivering the right audience on the right platform at the right time is critically important. And because we have the scale to be able to do that with the most premium brands in terms of sports and broadcast and cable and streaming, we're very excited about what those partnerships look like, and also being able to be responsive to the market in ways that they've asked us for.
What are you anticipating as it relates to the streaming budgets moving, from linear into streaming, and what that might look like this year?
Yeah, I don't know that they're moving. I think, when I look at our business, we've been very much over time evolving that. So I think they're following audiences. There's no question that there is, Janine, we used to have these conversations a couple of years ago, and they're like, we want to move digital. And people will be like, I don't need to move digital as part of the upfront. There's endless impressions. I think streaming is television. And I think this is a television video upfront. And people want to place their dollars where they know the audiences are. And because of the scale and reach of Hulu and our own digital platforms, we have tremendous reach there. But by the way, I can tell you that the conversation around broadcast and sports is as relevant and as robust as it's ever been. And so that's why I feel like when you look at the Disney portfolio, there's a real big opportunity, because you're going to get the best of live, the reach of broadcast, and yet scale and streaming across television content that is, day and date with what's on a lot of the linear platforms. So it's really exciting, regardless of what platform the clients want to be part of, that they get to reach the audiences. And again, younger on streaming, older on linear, but total marketplace is the opportunity to reach across everything.
And how are you thinking about things like attribution and other new metrics? Last year with COVID, I think it was a little bit of just like trying to survive, right? And just like get things done. I don't know how much people were really focused on like advancements and really leaning into these things. Is there more of a willingness this year? Do you think we're going to see movement forward with things like attribution, advanced advertising, et cetera?
No doubt. Yeah, last year, well, first of all, we had the whole out-of-home phenomenon right in the middle of the upfront. But, very shortly thereafter, the market came back pretty quickly, I would say. And there was a lot of excitement around what we could do differently and how we started to measure screens. Never more compelling than our first ever digital presentation that we did in February around our technology showcase, to really highlight all of the advancements that we're doing. I think there's a necessary and absolute need for us to unify our technology stack. We've been investing in it. We announced it 4 years ago. We're making tremendous progress. 50% of our impressions will be addressable in the next 3 years. People want data. They want the ability to target. They want the ability to target across screens. They want the ability to buy it programmatically, to buy it direct. And in the world where, all of these identifiers are being deprecated, and we've built this significant audience graph of Disney consumers, we have been really investing in that in a long time. By the way, more than anything because of need, because of how protective we were in terms of how we bring that to market. And we've rolled that out now, and it's really compelling in terms of the opportunity to buy across everything linear and addressable. And then some other products, right? In addition to the ad innovation, when you think of things like Drax, where we're able to shorten the waterfall and every advertiser is able to bid on all inventory equally. That's really exciting. And then you've seen in the last 12 months, really a tremendous shift to programmatic buying. And we've seen the benefits of that, as well as the performance marketers who sometimes start in addressable and make their way onto linear businesses, and sometimes start in linear and start to really take advantage of how they can use the targeting and the ability to build their business through performance marketing. And so there's a whole host of advancements that's actually happened in the last 12 months that I think will only accelerate going forward.
I'm Janine Poggi, and I'm here with Disney's Rita Farrow. Let's talk actually a little bit more about like e-commerce and all of that. Obviously, with COVID, huge, uptick in e-commerce. What does that mean for things like shoppable and other opportunities? As you talk about like D2C advertisers, bringing more of those in, what do you see as the opportunity there?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of innovation around that. One of the things we launched in the last couple of months was our self-service platform to get all of these smaller businesses in who really we wouldn't talk to in a normal environment on, in a regular direct advertising business, but who can actually come into our platform and take advantage of all the tools and services we have available for them. We have our shoppable ad, which is Gateway Go, which allows us to create commerce through push notifications and QR codes to be able to, for advertisers to be able to create that experience. We're investing more in that space. That's a high growth area, as you mentioned, for the industry. I think there's always the ability to create that attribution is really important. We saw that in the pause ad. I don't know if you were able to watch our upfront last week, but our pause ad where we actually were able to do a pause for a cause and actually allow our viewers to donate to one of their favorite charities of their choice. And that shows the interactivity that's being built across all of our screens. And we're only looking to accelerate that and grow that more. So we're very excited about what that's going to create for our business going forward.
What do you see as terms of consumer appetite for those things? I feel like we've talked about interactivity for a long time. First it was on the remote control and you're touching buttons, which was awkward and clunky. And it's obviously a very different experience now on digital and streaming. But is there an appetite to actually engage and lean in, while watching content?
I can tell you just based on the programs that we've put in place through these initial pilots, it's the appetite's there because these advertisers are seeing results and coming back. And so, as it gets better and the technology gets better, because all of that is really, it's different. There's different levels of advancements across the different screens. But I think as the technology gets better, you're going to see that because at the end of the day, people want to be able to make the advertising more relevant and useful for them. And so we're very excited about what those opportunities will bring, but there's still a lot of work to do in that space.
So if last year the keyword was flexibility, what do you think the focus is in 2021?
I can tell you every conversation is really about incremental reach. How do I get incremental reach? Advertisers are still wanting their television, but they understand they're missing a subset of the audience. And how do we bring that to bear? On our portfolio, it's obviously through our streaming platforms, not only Hulu, but our, ESPN Plus, as well as our abc.com and all of the others. And we're very excited about the reach, that incremental reach that all of that brings, and that it's unduplicated, right? Because the audiences on those platforms are younger. So while it's the same show, it has a different audience profile, which is exciting to see the 1+1 opportunity for clients.
Let's talk a little bit about the sports marketplace, because obviously last year, things were a mess, as most things were. Obviously, a lot more predictability going into this year. What are you seeing, and what is the demand right now for sports?
The demand from a consumer perspective, I can tell you is great, only because I will tell you that last Thursday I was at the PGA Championships in South Carolina. What an experience. And the fans were out and about and super excited. And you saw it in the audience delivery of the event. And on Sunday, I got to go to the Garden to watch our Knicks play an extraordinary game. They didn't win, but they played an extraordinary game. And the passion of the fans, it is incredible to have fans back in arenas and sporting events, because you can see the energy and you're seeing it in the lift of the ratings. We saw that also in the NFL draft. It was the first big event that we had a lot of fans in that you could, as a viewer, enjoy. And you saw the lift in the numbers. And we are so excited at ESPN to be able to have all of the four majors back and so much more. And so we're gearing up for the fall, the excitement around college football and having kids back at school so we can do our, all of our events from across the country. I think the advertiser appetite is enormous as well. So I'm very excited about what sports will mean. And as you've seen from ESPN's perspective, we've been doubling down on rights, understanding that nothing drives live engagement with consumers and fans like sports does. And we're very excited about that opportunity for coming up.
What is the biggest challenge for Disney heading into the marketplace this year?
I don't know that we have a challenge. I think because we have such a dynamic and rich portfolio, I think it's just making sure that we're giving every partner the exact partnership expectations that they deserve from us in terms of the delivery of service, the delivery of opportunity, that we're making sure people understand the value and the investment that they're putting in, what they're getting back, and being able to really quantify that. We're very excited about, obviously, all of the conversations we're having. Partners are really pushing us to think differently and bring things different to the table. The team has now been working extraordinarily hard over the last, call it 16 months that we've been working on COVID. And I think there's been just a different kind of partnership and conversation with brands to be able to think about how we execute differently. And we're excited about what that means for next year.
Yeah, and when we, do this again next year and we chat, this time next year, what do you hope or what do you think will be like the biggest change to come out of the marketplace over the course of the next year?
That we will value every impression equally and that we will be able to measure and count it. We're working really hard with our partners to be able to do that and make sure that every deal can be counted and measured and delivers on the KPIs for clients and whatever that means, right? So some have different metrics than others. Some have brand lift, some have sales, some have resonance. They're all important, but the ability to have the flexibility and the dynamic response that we need to be able to service all of our brand partners is critically important.
Rita, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad you got to join us and appreciate it.
Thank you, Janine. Always a pleasure.
Be well.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap on TV Pivot. Thank you so much to our panelists for joining us. We appreciate your time, especially during this busy time of year. Thank you to our co-presenting sponsors, Cadent, LG Ads, LiveRamp, Methodify by Delvinia, and Steelhouse, and our supporting sponsor, TalkWalker. You can stay up to date on all of our TV upfronts coverage by going to adage.com/upfront. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and a special thank you to our Ad Age crew, Alfred Mascaroni, Anna Sakula, Max Sternlicht, and Arabella Breck for making this live stream happen. Thanks everyone.